Ladies and gentlemen, our next segment is Breaking Bad, what it takes to rise above circumstances. Please welcome White House Domestic Policy Council Director Andrew Bremberg, Governor Pete Shumlin, Lieutenant Governor Mary Taylor, and your host, Greta Van Susteren.
Nice chairs.
Yeah, we'll be all right.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Very happy to be here today to moderate this fabulous panel about a very distressing issue. An issue I might add is bipartisan. It affects Republicans, Democrats, Independents, Libertarians, affects everybody. And my panel incidentally is bipartisan as well. And I want to get started right away because this really is a problem that we all need to think about and talk about. So I'm going to start first with you, Lieutenant Governor of Ohio. Why is this topic important to you? There are a lot of, you could be here talking about jobs in Ohio and how many jobs you've got open. Why do you want to talk about this one?
So this is an issue that impacts every family and has impacted my family, but I've also seen it in the state of Ohio. I've talked to parents who have lost, loved ones. I've talked to people who are suffering in the crisis that is the addiction issue, and it's touched every single person that I've come across. And we need good leaders who will stand up and provide real solutions to give hope and help and healing to so many individuals today that are suffering.
Andrew, government can't solve every problem. Government can help solve problems. Government can lead. What do you see as the role of government in this crisis, this epidemic, which is nationwide and a health epidemic?
Well, thank you, Greta. And I just want to say how thankful I am to be back at CPAC. I love coming every year. So thank you, CPAC. This is a critical issue. And you opened up saying that, it's not a conservative issue or a liberal issue. And as a conservative, this is a really important issue. Mm-hmm. And working for President Trump, who campaigned vigorously during the campaign on this issue in states that have been devastated by this epidemic, helps us understand why it is an issue. And you're right, government has a legitimate role to play in tackling certain issues. We love living in a free society where government doesn't do everything, but there are important things that the government has to do, and it has to do them well. And this is an area where government has really failed. And that's something that President Trump talked about as a candidate and has now led on this last year over and over again, talking about the need for states and localities, for the medical professionals, for law enforcement to come together to help address this crisis in our communities.
All right, if it were easy, it would have been solved a long time ago, like North Korea. If North Korea were easy, it would have solved it decades as well. Just to give a little statistics, 2016, 64,000 people died from this, 64,000. And to give you a point of reference, car accidents took the lives of only 40,000 people. This is not easy. This is a challenge. Governor, what strategy or what new ideas or what else can be done? Because everyone's pretty much at wit's ends. Lives have been destroyed.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me because this is a bipartisan issue. And as a governor, we're all dealing with it. Doesn't matter what your state are, what your politics are. I think the question for us is, first of all, to answer your question of what are you doing about it, what's the solution? And I think this is an easy one to solve. And most people don't say that. This is an easy one to solve if we have the courage. Why are we in this mess? Why are we on the stage? We just heard from Eric about his son. The lieutenant governor is dealing with this challenge with both of her sons. Why are we all in this mess? Why have we lost more folks to opiate addiction since the year 2000 than we lost in World War II and Vietnam combined? What changed? In the 1990s, we approved OxyContin. The manufacturer of OxyContin told the public, healthcare professionals, and the FDA, we've got the first non-addictive painkiller, and we all were so rejoiceful. It turns out they were wrong, and not only were they wrong, but they pleaded guilty to lying to the FDA. This is the best kept secret in America. They got paid a fine, the three top execs, of roughly $700 million for lying to the FDA. 85% of the folks addicted to heroin start with FDA-approved pills that you pick up in your drugstore. So the question is, what's the solution? And my view is, you have governors like me, we do criminal justice reform. We build out treatment. We get rescue kits to everyone that will take them. We all do the same things, but it's after folks have become addicted. And this is the worst disease to have that one can contract in terms of the fight, the struggle, what it does to your family members, what it does to your lives. So my answer is a simple one. Listen, there's two things we can do, and this isn't hard. Number one, the FDA should revisit the decision they made about passing out painkillers like candy, now that we have admitted that they got lied to in the first place. Second, just like what happened with tobacco, we've got governors like me, we've got attorney generals, I know lieutenant governors working on this in Ohio, all over the country, mayors, you name it, municipalities. We're all suing the folks that put us in this mess to try to get money for treatment and change the behavior. Why don't we do what we did with tobacco, get them all in a room? The President of the United States, President Trump, has the ability to be the winner on this. And I can tell you, President Obama messed this one up when he reduced the burden of proof for the pill mill folks that were having these trucks truck this stuff to the pill mills. That's where folks get a lot of these pills. The Obama administration literally reduced the burden of proof, raised the burden of proof, so that the enforcers literally have to get these folks to plead guilty before they can stop the trucks from moving to the pill mills. So here's my point. There's no one, in my view, who knows more about this kind of issue than John Cole, who happens to be here today. Sorry, John, to pick you up, but just stand up because I want folks to know who you are. This guy got tobacco in a room back years ago and got them to pay for their sins.
Handsome too, I might add.
Yeah, but he, by the way, he's related to Greta. But my point is, President Trump has the ability to be a hero here. He can put them in a room, say, don't come out of that room until you settle this. It's time for the taxpayers to stop paying for treatment. You guys got to pay. You guys got to pay, and you got to change your behavior, and you're not coming out of that room until you do. I think that's the opportunity for the President of the United States.
Okay. Governor, I have a two-part question for you. One is, the great thing about this is that we can talk and discuss. I mean, to what extent do you agree with or disagree with Governor Shumlin as we're trying to sort of come up with some sort of ideas for solution? That's the first thing. But before we get to that, I get so many tweets where people think people who are in real pain, they think, don't take away my pain pills. And we do need to keep people out of pain. So there's another element to this, is that some people who genuinely have pain, I'm not saying they need help.
Yeah, so I'll start with, first of all, there is a conservative solution to this, and I believe that the government has a role to play, but government is not the solution. We do need comprehensive care, and we need to make it available to citizens living in addiction today. It is a long road, as you said, Governor, to health and recovery, and there is a role for government to play. It's to incentivize the private sector to build out the type of care that is necessary to restore lives, but we also have to foster and encourage looking for alternative ways to treat pain. And as patients, we shouldn't accept that these addictive pain pills is the best we can do. And so individuals living in pain today, I would recommend we need to open up the opportunity for these alternative ways to treat pain and not just accept that the best I can do is a pain pill.
Let me ask you this, is that before these opioids came on the scene, which what, the mid to late 90s?
Yep.
People had pain, right?
Yes.
Was there inadequate pain management, or did we have something that helped them that wasn't quite as addictive?
So my understanding, based on what I've read,
and you two jump in if you have the answer.
And you probably know as much about this as anybody, Andrew, but when they started treating pain as a vital sign, in my opinion, it all shifted to our medical community now being judged and being rated based on how well they were treating pain, yet pain is subjective. I'm not a medical professional, but pain is subjective, and if I came in and said, Greta, how's your pain?
10.
Right. I have to treat you because you're going to evaluate me.
I'm afraid if I don't say 10, you're going to give me 2 and I'm going to be in pain.
Right.
Right.
But it all started, in my opinion, when I look back into history, it all seemed to start to shift at that point. And government had a role to play there. They are the ones that said, we're going to treat pain like a vital sign. And it became the 5th vital sign, and it's not measurable. And we created this crisis.
Let me give you another statistic which I find quite stunning. Between 2006 and 2016, out-of-state drug companies shipped almost 21 million opioid pills to 2 pharmacies in Williamson, West Virginia, who had a population of 2,900. Andrew, I'm not a doctor either, but that just doesn't seem right either to me.
No, that's right. And I want to follow up on a point that the governor made about law enforcement. We saw in the last administration, a president and attorney general who I don't believe respected the rule of law, respected due process rights, or vigorously enforced the law. So we now have a president and an attorney general who are vigorously enforcing the law. And that starts with enforcing the law against companies that have broken the law. That can include criminal investigations, civil investigations as well, but then also going after people on the streets who are pushing drugs into our communities. The last administration said it was okay to do drugs. They downplayed this as an issue. We need to do a better job teaching our young people, don't go down the path of addiction. We need to provide treatment, and treatment is a hard road. I mean, myself, I'm sure most of the people in this room have had family members that have struggled with an addiction and needed treatment in one way, shape, or form. I think the president spoke passionately about this last year, that his own family, where he saw the life of his older brother dealing with alcoholism and what that did, the most important message we need to do is ensure that people do not start down the road of doing drugs and leading down this road path towards addiction that is so hard to come back from. The best thing we can do from a treatment standpoint is a prevention action that prevents people from starting to use drugs.
And that, of course, is one of the biggest problems, is that if you're at the point where you need treatment, and some people need treatment, you've already lost your job, lost your family, you've completely, it's been terrible, pain to your friends and everybody. It's really late at the point. So Governor Shumlin, how do we start at the beginning, realizing we have to deal with those who are now addicted? We need to have pain pills for those who have genuine pain. How do we start at the beginning so that we don't have this whole universe of people?
So let's just back up a second, because everything that's being said here is true, except that we are hesitant to point out that in most issues that I face as a governor, and I'm sure all governors face this, when you actually get into the details of policy, it gets a little more gray. It's not quite as clear. It's not quite as black and white. This one is black and white. America did not have someone dying every 15 minutes from opiate addiction before we approved OxyContin. These are the facts. We passed it out like candy. These are the facts. We now have thousands and thousands of good people dying every year from this disease. So why wouldn't we, if the FDA had the folks who lied to them come up and say, sorry, we didn't tell you the truth, why wouldn't we simply go, hey, wait a minute, team. We got bad information. As the Lieutenant Governor pointed out, we've reconfigured the way we judge our healthcare system based upon OxyContin, so it's now the 5th criteria to be judged by. Let's undo that, back it up, and have the folks who lied and created this disease pay for the treatment, and the prevention should be, in my view, stop passing it out like candy, revisit the FDA decision, let's start where we began, with a more sane policy on pain drugs in America.
I always think that the power of the government of the White House is, what we all know is so incredibly potent in terms of helping solve things, but it's oftentimes dependent on the political parties working together, because there's so many political interests involved, and this is a nonpartisan issue. But could you two work together, even with whatever differences, maybe you don't have many differences, but could you two work together? And you've got the conduit to the President of the United States right there. Do you have new ideas that you could get, that you could ask him for help on?
Absolutely, and killing our kids is a bipartisan problem. No one says, hey, this is a good idea. Let's get as many folks as we can addicted to this stuff.
But you see, the problem is that if just the Lieutenant Governor goes to the White House and asks for help or something, it's a Republican asking him. If you just go, it's a Democrat. But you two are sort of in a unique position that, you both come from states where this has been a scourge. Of course, every state has been a scourge. You actually, you seem like you want to work together.
So I would say, Governor, we haven't talked about this, and I am a Republican, I'm a conservative, and one of the challenges we face in this country is we know where it's coming from.
Right.
It's coming from Mexico, it's coming from China when you start talking about fentanyl. Now, I would say build the wall, because I'm a conservative Republican.
Right.
You may not. You may not agree with that, but I bet you and I could get on the same page of how do we help reinforce law enforcement to keep the drugs out of our country.
And to that point, I just want to say an important part. We've seen this skyrocketing of overdose deaths just in the last few years.
Yeah.
I mean, our country has been suffering from a scourge of drug use for decades, but the reason why this has become such a potent point in so many communities and families is the number of overdose deaths just in the last few years has gone up dramatically. And that is largely due to fentanyl and the importation by drug cartels and other criminals bringing fentanyl in from China or Mexico into our country has got to stop. The last administration failed to protect Americans from fentanyl. The Trump administration is working day and night to keep these harmful drugs out. And that's why we have to build a wall, increase our border security, provide Homeland Security the technical resources they need to screen this stuff from coming in from China, and it's got to stop.
Can I just make a quick point? My point is this. We've always had drug problems in America, and we all have different views probably on how to solve it, or maybe we have the same views. But here's what's changed on this one. 85% of folks who go to the heroin that has the fentanyl in it start with FDA-approved pills. They're not getting those from the drug dealers in South America. They're getting those from the corner drugstore.
Can we do both?
Yes.
We can do both.
That's the point. Is that
and we must do both.
Stop the importation and stop the abuse of those that are prescribed by the doctor to the pharmacy.
This is I think that President Trump has a unique ability, and you, as in your job at the White House, to be the president who solves this problem because there's bipartisan consensus. We want to stop the dying, the tragedy. And I always say the biggest victims of this disease are the kids of the addicts.
Absolutely.
As a governor, that is the most heart-ripping thing you can experience.
That's
those
the next
kids that
trauma.
are left behind.
The
Governor,
next trauma.
What's your biggest challenge in solving this? I mean, what do you see as the biggest impediment?
Wow, there's several. It's a supply and demand issue, so we've got to get it off our streets.
Do you need that from does the White House help you with that or not? Is that an Ohio problem? Okay.
That's a
both. Federal
It's
government.
a both.
Okay.
It's a federal and a state problem. We need to keep the drugs off our streets. We need to hold drug dealers accountable. Law enforcement needs additional resources to get these guys and these guys that are killing our kids and throw them in jail.
What about, let me ask you this, what about the pharmaceutical industry, those that are producing this, and the companion problem that there's an awful lot of money in this town that goes over the transom in these on Capitol Hill, both sides of the aisle. How do you fight that issue? So
what we've done in Ohio is we have issued. And I'm not all for regulations. I'm not a government regulation person, but here this is a public safety issue. We have issued regulations where you can only prescribe a pain pill for acute pain for 7 days if you're an adult and for 5 days if you're a child. You have to take these steps in order.
That's not federal. It's not that federal.
No, that's state. We did it in the state of Ohio.
Why don't we have that federally?
Right. As conservatives, we recognize that state government needs to make most policies in this country. Okay? Every problem is not a federal problem. Governors should love that. That's right. Every problem is not a federal problem. Now, every problem the federal government needs to have some sort of response to in making sure we show federal leadership as a nation. And let me finish this point. So states right now are being smart and innovative and passing new good legislation that bans prescriptions or limits prescriptions in certain amounts, and that's great. And Greta, the worst thing that we could have happen is for the federal government to intervene and pass laws that were uniform across the country, that tried to solve this problem. Because you know what would happen? We've seen this happen in healthcare. We've seen this happen across the space time and time again. With good intentions, the federal government passes some law. The unintended consequences of that law trickle down through years and decades, and Congress can never come back and fix those problems. Governors and state legislatures pass these laws every year.
So why
they can fix these problems. As limited government conservatives, we should encourage our state leaders to pass these laws to take these issues on.
Which brings it back, I think, and Governor Shumlin can ask herself, is that the power of the White House, the power of the Oval Office is to get everybody into one room, basically, lock them in the room till they do this. But every state. Governor, I'll let you have the last word because you're the minority.
Listen, let's for a minute put our hearts aside and just use our math heads on this one. It costs me $25,000 to treat someone after they become addicted. So it costs you $25,000 as a taxpayer, every time someone gets addicted to these substances. It's a huge cost to taxpayers. If we've got an industry, which we do, Purdue and others, it's not just the manufacturers, it's the distributors, the pharmaceutical, they're all in this. If we've got them making billions and billions of dollars off of this disease that's killing people, I think the White House has a unique opportunity to replay the tobacco tape, get the folks in a room, close the door, because these lawyers, they'll run this thing like asbestos forever and say, listen, this isn't about lawyers making money. This is about taxpayers getting paid for the bill they're paying now for a disease that was created by lies to the FDA. Let's make that happen, and I think President Trump would be a hero to America if he facilitated that process.
Panel, thank you very much. Once again, this is a problem that affects all of us. And to the extent that we're all talking about it and actually trying to do something, you do a huge service to the country because it's a big problem. Anyway, thank you. Thank you,
Greta.
Thank you, Greta. I think we go that way.